I had the chance to speak with Scott Roberts, who directed the narrative feature film Letters Home that will screen at this year's Kansas City Film Fest International on Saturday, April 13th at 6 p.m. Immediately after the screening will be a Q&A with the director. You can get tickets now at kcfilmfest.org. Alrighty, thank you for talking with me today, Scott. So just to get started here, I ask all of the filmmakers this, but just tell me what your movie is about in your own words.
Well, it's about my life growing up in the little town of Platte City, Missouri, which I bet a lot of our viewers will be familiar with, at least somewhat familiar with. Maybe you just know it as the little town north of the airport. Or maybe you know someone from there. Maybe you are from there. But yeah, I really did grow up in Platte City. In my case, it was a little earlier than depicted in the film, but my whole childhood was spent there until I went off to college, and it was very inspiring. Just the people, just incredible characters that inspired the fictionalized characters of the movie.
And it's a really fantastic film. And
Oh, thank you.
what is so interesting to me is just also its background story, because this was filmed 25 years ago. So, can you go through a little bit and talk about what that process was like in creating Letters Home?
Sure. Yeah, this is a story. I don't know that I would wish this upon any other filmmaker,
Mm,
but here we are. This is my lived experience. Yeah, we put this together in the summer of '98. It came together very quickly, and in that respect, it was blessed with the cooperation of the whole city and all these people being involved and offering their time, the entire school system. So that was really a blessing. But here's the thing, as you know, a lot of films blow through their whole budget just trying to get the thing shot.
mm,
That is exactly what happened to us. And we were shooting on film, which is kind of one of the
mm,
special things about this movie. This really was one of the last films shot on film that
mm,
is in this budget range. Big movies like you can go see Oppenheimer, and
mm,
that'll be in film, but that's a whole different thing, obviously.
mm,
Um, Regular movies shot on film went away quite a while ago for the most part. And we were one of the last ones. So
mm,
here we had no budget left. We'd shot on film. So we had all this film, but no way to develop it, much
mm,
less cut it. You have to do this thing called cut negative. Or at least at that time, that was the option. So there were very few places for us to go. We were kind of boxed in. We had to just put everything on a shelf. We were hoping for maybe a year or two, we would
mm,
have a solution to that. But the cost of that film-based post-production workflow did not go down for many, many, many years, partly because it was disappearing so fast. That was
mm,
part of the problem. It became a sparse commodity and therefore became very expensive for the few people who were still doing it.
mm,
So we were really in a corner on that. And it was painful to know we had all this film, and no way to really use it. So it was only in the last couple years. It was two and a half years ago that we finally found someone who could scan everything
mm,
on an acceptable low budget, or at least one that we could afford. And then suddenly everything's possible again. We're off to the races. And that's when the real post production on Letters Home began. And also a reevaluation of what the movie was, because as you might know, um, it has narration now and an entirely different
mm,
perspective that we didn't anticipate at the time. It was shot in a very straightforward manner. It was a straightforward coming of age story with no narration even planned. It was just telling the tale of this child growing up. And then suddenly we thought, here we are all these years later. How do we make this an advantage that
mm,
so much time has passed? Well, I could speak from my modern day perspective,
mm,
looking back at what are now memories of mine
mm,
as an adult. So I hunkered down in addition to editing, color grading, scoring. We have a wonderful score that I'm so thrilled with from the great Eric Schroeder. Everyone should hire him. He's amazing.
Mhm.
Uh, and then I wrote narration, recorded that, and we ended up with the movie we have today. So here we are.
And a super fascinating process. And really, what strikes me about it is just with it taking place in the 80s, now you have the setting that feels even more like a period piece. So,
Yeah,
really kind of worked out.
yeah, isn't that crazy? We were back timing it a little bit even at the time because filming in '98, our characters still had to grow, so we had to back time it to '88 as our starting point, so that the end of our story, our 10 years older character could be surrounded by what was then present day. So
Mhm.
we had to be a little cautious even then about, what was showing up in which scene in terms of clothes and hair and cars and things. Um, but then time kind of did us a favor in that respect too and gave us some extra production value
Mhm.
just by so much time elapsing. So, I won't complain about that part. We'll
So,
take everything we can get.
when people see the film and the credits roll, what would be the one thing that you want people to take home with them from your story with Letters Home?
Well, I'm coming from a different place now,
Mhm.
obviously. And with my new perspective on my own story that is being told and those of my friends and family,
Mhm.
I view, I started out years ago viewing this as simply telling a gentle, sweet story. I now view
Mhm.
it as more of my anti coming out story
Mhm.
because I'm an out gay man now and
Mhm.
I speak to this perspective through the narration, but the character never comes out
Mhm.
because you know what? I didn't.
Mhm.
That's my story. That was my truth. That was reality at that time. And so I think there are still a lot of people out there who are going to recognize themselves even as far as we've come. And if I can touch anyone in that way, or even
Mhm.
people who had a different experience and a much luckier experience in just either being out from the beginning or whatever it was, there's this enormous spectrum.
Mhm.
But if someone is somehow touched by this in a personal way, who's struggling or just finds it amusing and funny, what
Mhm.
my experience was, that would mean a lot to me. So that's where I am personally these days.
Well, certainly a great coming of age film, and I was super, excited to watch this film and hear about its history, and certainly encourage anyone, if you're in Kansas City, you're going to be here for the KC Film Fest, go out and see Letters Home.
Thank you. And appearing in person, I will be
Hmm.
there. I would love to talk to people. Um, so please come on out. I'd love to see you.
Yeah, so that's one of the great things about the film fest is seeing the films alongside the people who created them. So, yeah,
Yeah.
super excited for it. Thanks for talking to me today, and go see Letters Home, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Yep.